Hello, 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 and welcome to the PJH Writing Command Center for another podcast episode, a special Christmas Day podcast episode from God Bless the Keg Publishing LLC. Yes, indeedy, and I am Paul John Hausleben of God Bless the Keg Publishing LLC. I am the chief photographer, flagship author, music reviewer, music critic, and chief cook, bottle washer, do everything guy here at God Bless the Keg Publishing LLC with a little help from my friends. And my friends have all gone home. They were here for Christmas, early Christmas celebration here at the Writing Command Center. And they went to their own celebrations and their homes and their friends and their loved ones and their families and their dogs and their cats. And I'm here at the Writing Command Center alone. Got my Christmas tree all aglow, the Christmas village, all the Christmas decorations. We're playing some Christmas music. And I wasn't planning on doing this podcast. I did the Christmas Eve podcast last night, and I figured, oh my goodness, I'm all talked out. And I made my early morning calls and texts and emails and messages to my friends and my family and my loved ones, and some listeners answered some emails and such. And I decided to take the rest of the day off and just enjoy Christmas. Glorious, glorious Christmas. And my plans got derailed. I called my sister to wish her and her family a happy Christmas, and I spoke to my dear mom who lives with my sister, and dear mom is 91, going to be 92 in June. God bless her. And, we exchanged a lot of pleasantries, and she thanked me for the presents we sent up and all the things that were going on. And she's so excited telling me about my grandniece, Risley, opened up all the Santa Claus presents and all the excitement and the food and the wine and all the great things that Christmas is all about, and the simple gifts. And we got chatting a bit, and she was asking me about the books. I sent her a book for Christmas, The Best of the Flashes, and she reads. She's my number one fan. I guess your mother's always your number one fan, right? And we were talking about the writing, and I told her about a novel I'm working on. And she follows most of what I say. She's sharp. She doesn't hear too swift, though. So you got to keep repeating and screaming and things. And she thanked me for the book. I sent her The Best of The Flashes, which we released in November. And The Best of the Flash fiction pieces. And I added some new stories that were in there. And we dug up and stuck in there. It's a nice book. We're very happy with it. I'm working on a novel now. So my plan was just to take off after I did the Christmas Eve message and podcast last night, and then just relax. Have my Boxing Day tomorrow. I got my Christmas plum pudding ready to go. And we've got some turkey, and we've got some mashed potatoes, and we've got the green beans and the stuffing, and we got all the fixings. And tomorrow is a big soccer day. We got all the Boxing Day matches in the Premier League. And my club, Nottingham Forest, is off on Boxing Day, but they do play on Christmas Saturday. So I can enjoy that match without getting too frustrated if it goes awry on my Boxing Day. So we got everything planned. And then talking to dear mom, she said that, I told her about the podcast, and not being able to hear, she can't really listen too much. It's a struggle, and trying to explain to her. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, Paul, you're back on the radio. You're always on the radio, though. I say, well, no, it's not really like ham radio and everything. She, oh, you're back on that radio station. No. I said, it's sort of kind of like being on the radio, Ma, but it's like on the internet. And she's like, oh, I really don't understand, but whatever. And I told her some of the things we do, and she was all excited about that. And she said, I hope you tell some stories, Paul. And I said, of course, Mom. I'm a storyteller. I'm not an author. I'm a storyteller. And I'm a terrible author. And she said, oh, I love your stories. I particularly like the holiday stories. And I said, well, every holiday we do some special holiday podcasts. And I usually tell a story from the books. I told her we did the roller skating story from Time Bomb in the Cupboard for Labor Day. And then we did the 4th of July with the old man blowing up the garden shed. And then the famous Thanksgiving, we did the Memorial Day with flying and all the things we've done. And I told her that last night I had recorded and released the Christmas Eve podcast with telling the famous Christmas tree story with the old man, and she laughed. She loved that story too. And then she dug up a memory here, and she said to me, "Oh, Paulie, I hope you tell that story from the Christmas tree book, the first Christmas book." And I have a lot of Christmas books. And she said, "You ought to tell that little short story, A Simple Gift." And it took me a little while even to remember that story. That's how sharp she is. And she said, every time I read that every Christmas. She said, I read a lot of your Christmas stories, but that one always makes me cry. And she said, if I remember right, and then I remember the story. She said, it's based upon when you were on the road and you had a little boy living at the apartment complex where you were at the time. And he was very lonely and he had no father. I said, yeah, it is based upon that. And I bought him a Christmas gift. And I wrote that story in a long time ago. Christmas Tree is actually one of the oldest stories I wrote. And that book is I think the second book we ever published. But I probably wrote that story around 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And she, dear mom, said, you ought to tell that story, Paulie. And that got me thinking a little bit. Wow, yeah, it is a good one. And then I recalled that I had the habit of on old cassette tape of recording the stories that I was writing because I would play them back and listen in a pair of headphones, pair of cans, and listen to the story and edit it from there. And I knew I had a lot of stories from that era. I have a lot of stories that I recorded audio-wise, some for that radio gig and other things. But anyway, I went up and after I hung up with Mom, I went up and dug around in a dusty old box, and sure enough, I found the tape, A Simple Gift, and it is about based upon nonfiction. So let me put the setting down for you, and the tape's a little rough. It's about 15, 16 years old, and I'm just literally reading it as I wrote it, and you can hear me turning pages and such, and it's magnetic tape, so it has a lot of hiss and noise. And I did my best to clean it up with noise reduction and some technology, but keep in mind it is an old recording, and I really wasn't trying to be very polished about it, but I think it's really good, and I do like the story. And so the setting is one of the characters from The Adventures of Harry and Paul, and at one point, Harry goes away in the adventures, and Paul's kind of riding solo. He loses his girlfriend, and he's on the road playing ice hockey and trying to be a professional goaltender, and he's getting kind of lonely. And this is a Christmas setting, and it initially starts because after he plays hockey, becomes a Lutheran minister. He follows his second dream to go into the ministry. And the story starts with him and his wife and his family Christmas time in their house, and they receive a Christmas card that invokes some memories. And then Pastor Henson tells the story in his own mind. He's a first-person narrator, and then we come back. So that's the setting. I think the character of Paul John Henson, certainly there's some nonfiction in there, and me being a hockey player, and I am a religious guy. I just don't wear it on a sleeve, and we'll go into that some other time. But and Binky is his wife, and he has his kids in the ministry. They're in the parsonage there at the first church he's serving at, and that's the setting for the story. And I think Henson is a popular character. He kind of annoys me though. I think the old man is probably the most popular. Odell. And of course, the great Harry M. Redmond Jr., who's the star of The Adventures of Harry and Paul. So that's the setting, and I'm going to play the tape. And once more, I apologize for the quality, but it is an old recording, and I think it's pretty good. And then we'll come back after we play that reading and just wrap this up. So here we go. We're going to go with A Simple Gift from the book I wrote around 2009, 2010, The Christmas Tree and Other Christmas Stories, Tales for a Christmas Evening. So here we go. Hang on, I got to push some buttons and not make too many mistakes. Thank you. A Simple Gift, a short story written by Paul John Hausleben for his book, The Christmas Tree and Other Christmas Stories, Tales for a Christmas Evening. Read by Paul John Hausleben. Do you by chance know a person named Mr. Franklin T. Sterling, number 27? I stopped short as I walked through our living room, turned around, and saw that my wife was sorting through what appeared to be the Daily Mail. I thought for a moment. No, Binky, I'm afraid that name does not ring any bells. Franklin T. Sterling, eh? Yes, well, he knows you. It appears to be a Christmas card that he has sent to you. I would assume that this is a person you knew from your old hockey playing days, since his return address shows that he is from Norfolk, Virginia. In addition, he addressed it to Reverend Paul, 27, Henson. Therefore, this person does indeed know you from your hockey career, but they do not know you well enough to realize that you dislike being called by the title of Reverend. Binky then leaned in for one of her patented stares, looked at me deeply, until I looked up from reading the card and acknowledged that her correct analysis of the situation. My lovely wife analyzed everything, even Christmas card addresses. She was similar to some of the world's greatest detectives in her quest to seek out clues around every corner. It was part of what I loved about her. Yeah, I think you're correct, dear Binky, as always. You are correct. My wife handed me the envelope, and I had to agree that it seemed to be a Christmas card. She fluffed her hair and winked at me because she was satisfied with her correct analysis of the situation. Thank you, I said as I stared at the return address. You're very welcome, dear number 27. Now I need to go and check on dinner and my Christmas cookies. I can hear that our children are not paying attention to them. I had left them in charge for just a moment to watch the cookies bake, and I fear they have drifted away from their duties. I can hear them both singing the theme song from Dinky the Orange Teddy Bear, interlaced with silver bells. My poor cookies may be burning up in the oven as we speak. Yeah, I guess you better go check on them, dear. My mind wandered back in time to Norfolk, Virginia, as I tried to remember if I knew anyone with the name of Franklin Sterling. I did know a little kid there whose name was Frankie. I wonder. The afternoon was cold, and I pulled my old wreck of a Jeep behind the small apartment complex, which I now called my home. It was cold, at least for Norfolk, Virginia it was cold. To the locals, they would call this a cold December day, but I surely wished that it was a whole lot colder. It was only 2 weeks or so before Christmas, and I was longing to see a few snowflakes dancing in the air. Then again, I needed to be thankful for any day that the temperature was down below 40 degrees or thereabouts. I dislike Virginia, and here in Norfolk, it was very seldom less than 1,000,000 degrees with stifling humidity. For sure, it was not my cup of tea. Coming from northern New Jersey, I was a cold weather guy. Nonetheless, we do what we have to do in our quest to make a living or earn some sort of perceived success. I had moved up the professional hockey ranks, so I should not have complained. After a season and a hairpin more in Albany, New York, playing for the Albany Flying Dutchman Hockey Club, the parent company that actually owned my contract made the big call. The scouts wanted me to be a step closer to a call-up to the big time. The owners of my contract were the Boston Bears, and they paid me a large sum of money and moved me to a team here in Norfolk, Virginia. I was playing well in the net, certainly holding my own, and waiting for the call to the big time. So for now, I endured Norfolk and made do with the situation. I climbed out of my Jeep, reached in the back seat, and pulled my hockey equipment bag out. I slung it over my back and slowly made my way towards the back door of the apartment. 27, did you win? I looked up and spotted the little boy who lived about 4 apartments away from me, running towards me, and he was shouting. Hey, Frankie, I smiled at the little boy. I grabbed him and stopped him as he plowed into me. Frankie was not an athlete. He was a little uncoordinated. Whoa, slow down here, kid. No, we did not play today. It was just a practice. But we do have a game tomorrow down in North Carolina. The little guy looked up at me and smiled a wide, broad, toothless smile. I would guess him to be about 8, or maybe 9 years old, but I never asked him his age. He lived a few doors away, and from what I could tell, it was just him and his mother alone in the apartment. He apparently had no father who lived with them. He was a really nice kid. He did not follow sports, but he asked me a million questions about technical things or other subjects. He seemed to be very intelligent and a studious young boy. I could tell that he loved school and most likely achieved high grades in his studies. He was also very curious. I put my equipment bag down and sat on the back steps of the apartment. I could tell that he was going to ask me a few questions. I did not want to disappoint the little boy. He was always alone and seemed so lonely. Sure enough, he followed me over to the steps. North Carolina? Is that near where you are from? No, Frankie, I'm from New Jersey. It is not really near North Carolina. Wow, I heard of that place. My mother says that's why you talk so funny, 'cause you are from there. You can always count on children to tell you a tidbit of a truthful conversation, not intentionally meant for anyone else to hear. They soak words and comments up like little sponges. Frankie leaned on the railing and looked at me. Well, I don't know, Frankie. I don't think I talk that funny. I tried to defend my New Jersey accent. The little boy shook his head and disagreed and said, a little funny, number 27. And you have all that cool long hair and a neat beard, too. You speak funny when you say dog or coffee. It sounds weird. My mom says that you're very handsome and she would love to spend time with you, but you're stuck on some girl somewhere because you don't speak to too many people. How do you stick to a girl, 27? I never see you with a girl stuck on you. You're always playing hockey. I laughed, as I'm sure his poor mother would be more than just a little embarrassed to hear him relaying this private conversation. It's just an expression, Frankie. It's the same as saying that you're in love with someone, or that you care about them. Frankie nodded and then asked, how many places have you been to, 27? Tell me all the places. It was almost always the same conversation with this little boy. He had a fascination with the description or mention of places, cities, countries, and states. I had to think he was a budding geography buff for sure. I patiently listed once more the names of all the places I had played hockey in and visited. I told him that my mother and her family were from other countries called England and Wales. He asked a ton of endless questions about each one. Where were they? Do the people there talk funny like I did? Is it north, south, east, or west? I had made the mistake of telling him that I spoke a little bit of the Welsh language, and he made me say a few words in Welsh to him and teach him what they all meant. And I was patient with him because I knew that he was lonely. It was a feeling the two of us shared and had in common. I think he escaped in his little mind to these places that I would describe to him, and he imagined what they were like. When I told him that I had visited and played hockey in another country called Canada, he stared and his eyes became wide. Is that the country you told me that is north of here? Yes, it is, Frankie. This time of year it's already cold and snowy. Is that where Santa Claus lives? Well, I don't know. I think it is near there, but Santa Claus lives even farther north in Canada. He lives way up north towards the North Pole. Have you ever been to the North Pole, number 27? No, Frankie, I have not. I bet you would like it, because it would have lots of ice for you to skate on. The only ice here that we have here is in my refrigerator. I smiled because the little kid was correct. So I told him, I bet that you would enjoy a visit there, Frankie. I think you would enjoy meeting Santa Claus in the North Pole. My mother says that Santa Claus doesn't come to us poor kids. I only get a coat for Christmas because my mother says that's what I need more than anything else. I don't have a daddy, and we don't really have no money. We do have a little Christmas tree this year, number 27. Last year we didn't have a Christmas tree, but my mother was raised up at her job, so now we can have one. What does raised up mean, 27? Well, I think it means that at your job, Frankie cut me off. His little mind jumped from subject to subject. So why do you wear the number 27? Why didn't you pick another number? I smiled and told the little boy the truth. Because when I first started to play hockey, when I was just a little older than you are right now, my father had a dream about me playing hockey. The number that he saw me wearing in his dream was the number 27. After he told me that, I took a black marker and wrote the number 27 on the back of my old sweatshirt that I played street hockey in. And ever since then, I've worn number 27. Wow, that's a cool story. You know, I have two dreams, number 27. One is that I had a daddy, and the other dream is that I wish that Santa Claus came to all kids, both rich and poor. Sometimes life is not very fair, and Christmas, with all the joy it can bring, also indirectly brings sorrow to an awful lot of people. I felt bad for the little boy, I really did. I searched for some words to answer and comfort him. They did not come easily. I stood up from the steps, walked over to where Frankie stood, and then I knelt down on the grass next to the little guy. I pushed my long hair away from the front of my face and draped it over my shoulders. As I put my arm around him and said, "Well, you know something, Frankie? When I was your age, I had a dream too. And my dream was I wanted to play professional hockey. I set my mind to it both night and day. I practiced hard. And here I am, playing out my dream." Do you know the best thing about dreams, Frankie? The little boy shook his head to show that he did not. Dreams, especially at Christmas time, do not cost anything. So dream as big as you can, for as long as you want, whenever you want. His face broke into a wide smile, and he jumped up and down in glee. Dreams are for free, 27. I guess I'm rich. I stood up, smiled at him, and said, "You sure are, kid. You sure are." "Frankie, please come inside the house for dinner." "Where are you, Frankie?" Frankie's mother appeared on the back stairs of their apartment as she called for her son. "I'm over here, Mom. I'm talking to number 27. He is going to Caro somewhere tomorrow to play hockey." Frankie turned to me and said, "I gotta go. Bye, 27. Goodbye, Frankie." The little boy ran off towards his mother, and I could hear him say to her, "He does talk funny, Mom. You're right, but I like him. He's such a nice guy. But I think you're right that he's stuck on a girl. But he's still my friend." "Shh, please, Frankie. You don't want to hurt his feelings now." I pretended as though I could not hear them, picked up my equipment bag, and walked in up the back steps and into the back door of my apartment. Frankie's mother waved to me as I unlocked the back door, and I waved back. Our team was on the road, first for a game in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then a stop for our next game in Nashville, Tennessee. I did not enjoy the Southeast Road Circuit. It was difficult for me to get used to bugs still flying around the air at Christmas time. We picked up 2 highly coveted road wins, so the team was in good spirits. While I was killing some time in Nashville, I glanced at the upcoming schedule and saw that we had Christmas as well as Boxing Day off. But then we had a game on December 27th. Ha! There was that number again. I realized I would not be able to make it home to New Jersey for Christmas or Boxing Day this year. I slipped out of the hotel room and walked to some local stores that were along the main street and were close to the hotel. I needed to pick up some gifts for my dear mom, my sister, the old man, as well as Rose, Ronzo, and my other family and friends back home. I shopped in a variety of stores, bought a number of gifts, and arranged with a shipping store to send them all back home to New Jersey in time for the holiday. For some reason, I wandered into a bookstore that was on that same street. As I browsed around the merchandise, I spotted a large book on the shelf titled Maps of the World, Geography of Far-Off Lands and Places. I picked it up, and it was fascinating. It had full color maps and details of the United States, Africa, Asia, in fact, the entire world. My eyes stopped when I landed on a chapter all about Canada. I knew a certain little boy who would love this book. I plunked down the cash, had the clerk gift wrap it for me, and I was off. When I returned to Norfolk, it was late on Christmas Eve afternoon. I had a quiet night planned. After sharing dinner with some teammates and sipping a few beers, talking about the games, I returned to my little apartment. These were the lonely times. Spending Christmas alone while on the road is a bit rough. After dark, when Christmas Eve settled upon all the land, I picked up the gift of the book and placed it inside of a larger box. I also had picked up 3 magnets, which were the kind of magnets that you stick on metal surfaces to hold up notes. One was a magnet depicting North Carolina, one was a New Jersey magnet, and the last one depicted the state of Tennessee. I placed them in the box along with the book, wrote out a label, and stuck it on top of the box. The label said, "To Frankie, from Santa Claus at the North Pole." I walked over to the back door of Frankie's apartment and placed the box next to the back door. A few days after Christmas, I pulled my old Jeep into the parking space behind the apartment complex, and I spotted out of the corner of my eye Frankie running towards me shouting, 27, 27, I've been waiting for you. Look!" Sure enough, he held the book in his one hand and the magnets in the other. The smile on his face was worth more than $1 million. A $10.25 book and a few dollar store magnets in exchange for $1 million smile on a small boy's face at Christmas time. Not a bad trade-off at all. Santa does come to poor kids. Look, he brought me a book about the world and some magnets of faraway places. Even one that is from where you are from. They are so cool, and they stick on metal. No kidding, Frankie. Well, I guess those dreams were for free there, kid. Please sit and show me. So we sat on the back steps for a few hours, as Frankie once again made me point out in his book and tell him about every place I had ever traveled to or visited. A simple gift is sometimes the best, be it a gift of time, or a gift of hope, or in some cases, a gift of direction. I returned from an extended road trip one day in February and found a note in my mailbox at the apartment. I opened it and read the words, "Thank you, number 27, for spending time with my son Frankie. Due to unfortunate circumstances, we had to suddenly move out of our apartment, and I regret that you were not home for us to say goodbye. I wish that you could know how much you touched his life with that book, the magnets, and with your time. I also wish that we all could have become closer friends." It was simply signed, Frankie's mom. I never saw them again. I opened the Christmas card after the memories faded while I stood in the living room, and I began to read a note inside of the cover of the card aloud. "Dear Reverend Henson, it took me a long time to track you down, but it was easier when I discovered that after you retired from playing professional hockey, you became a Lutheran minister. I must tell you that I am not surprised by your choice of professions. I do not know if you will even remember me, but I surely do remember you. And what I did not remember, my mother was able to fill in for me. I have a long overdue thank you that I wanted to convey to you. And I want to thank you for the Christmas gift that you gave me so long ago of that book of maps and geography. It is a treasure that I still have to this very day. What you may enjoy knowing is that your simple gift set me off on a lifetime and lifelong adventure of not only visiting all the places of the world, but also teaching about them. I also want to thank you for those magnets of the states. They still hold up notes on my refrigerator to this day. Whenever I look at them or pick up that book and glance through it, I think of you. This past year
I received a promotion to the position of Director of Geographic Studies in my career as a professor at the University of Virginia Highlands. It was your simple Christmas gift of so long ago that inspired me to dream, because I know that the best thing about dreams, especially at Christmas time, is they do not cost anything. So dream as big as you can, for as long as you want, whenever you want. Thank you, number 27, for the most important gift of all. Thank you for teaching me to dream. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and thank you again for your gifts of the book, dreams, magnets, and most importantly, the gift of yourself. It's signed respectfully, Professor Franklin T. Sterling, Director of Geographic Research, the University at Virginia Highlands. I closed the card and I smiled. I never knew that his real name was Franklin. The end. In the epilogue to The Christmas Tree and other Christmas stories, Tales for a Christmas Evening, I wrote, Christmas, glorious Christmas. It is that magnificent time of the year that steals our hearts with the captivation and the lure of happy times, twinkling lights, magical sleigh rides, and gifts of hope, joy, and peace. The days after Christmas inevitably bring that deflated feeling, that sad feeling that after all the planning, all those songs, all that food, all those shopping trips, all that money, all those horrible, rude jokes told by our drunken Uncle Joe, all that preparation, and it all went by in a flash. Now it is over, and we have to wait an entire year for the glorious Christmas day to return. On the other hand, do we? As the jingle bells no longer jingle, the twinkling lights dim and fade, the music no longer sings happily to us of sleigh rides in the snow, and the wrapping paper ends up in a trash can, what do we have left? It is very simple. We still have the hope, joy, and peace. Happy Christmas to all.
So we're back, and I hope you enjoyed the reading of that story. And I think it's got a great message to it. And I also found the epilogue. I read the epilogue to that same book, which has another really cool message. And you might make note, I did not get our little Orphan Annie decoder pins out for this podcast episode. It's Christmas Day, and this is a special podcast. And I think at this point, we've all heard enough commercials. and but still, I want to thank CFG Incorporated for sponsoring the podcast and wish a happy Christmas to Lydia and Steve and Liliana and everybody at CFG Incorporated. Thank you so much. But yeah, a simple gift, and a simple gift of your time, your words, your positive energy. It doesn't always have to be $1 million gift. It's just a message, and it's going about in your life and making a positive impact on people. Sharing yourself sometimes is more important than anything else. You don't know what people are going through at all times. And sometimes just sitting and chatting, having a cup of coffee or a cup of glass of beer, or wine, or just sitting and talking to somebody who looks like they're a little bit down can give them a new direction. And I think that's what the story is about. The character spends what? Maybe 20 bucks, 15 bucks, and sets this young boy off on a career. And I know that, along the way, I had plenty of people help me. And I always try to remember that. And in my own career, I remember those folks, and I try to do the same thing and help as many people on the path as I can. And when you think about Christmas, and maybe you don't celebrate Christmas, maybe you celebrate whatever holiday you celebrate. And that's the joy. Just celebrate life. Celebrate a holiday. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate a simple gift, a gift of your time, a gift of your words. They don't cost anything. And Christmas is really just simply about a simple gift, a baby, a savior. And I guess I could pull a Linus from the Charlie Brown, right? Do it from memory. It's Luke, the second chapter, right? Verse 8. In the region there were shepherds out in the field keeping the watch over the flock by night. an angel of the Lord appeared. Fear not. Behold, there's a Savior born, Christ the Lord. Simple gift, millions and millions of babies, but this baby is special, the ultimate special baby. A simple gift. And I think that's what that story's about. And thank you, Mom, because yeah, you were right. That's a good one. and I enjoyed listening to it and working on this podcast. And now Paulie is going to take a little bit of time and he's going to relax a little bit. We got Boxing Day and then we have Christmas Saturday and all the other stuff. And then we got the New Year's coming up. And I'll be back in January. And hey, be sure to listen to all the podcasts for the year. I don't know what happens at the end of the year, but I think the hosting site kind of compiles them. I don't know how I continue that. I got to research that. But download them and get them all ready. I hope that they don't disappear. But we'll be back in January for year 2, 2026. My goodness gracious. It's remarkable, isn't it? How time goes by. But in the meantime, I wish you and your family a happy Christmas Day, what's left of it. And Christmas goes on and on. It never really leaves us. And the words in the epilogue are kind of profound. And enjoy your day, enjoy your friends, enjoy your family, whatever holiday you're celebrating. Maybe you're by yourself, and there's something special about that too. And make the best of it. Because no matter what, you're loved. And I guess today, I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey, as I usually am. And I'm going to enjoy the rest. I got the turkey, I got all this stuff going on. And I was happy to do this recording. So, hey, please be kind, be gentle, be very tolerant, especially at Christmas time, right? All the time. Remember, kindness is for free. Spread it around as much as you can. It can only make this world a better place. And I'm not going to play my finely tuned instrument and make you suffer through that on Christmas Day. I already did that. But joy to the world, the Lord has come. And bye-bye for now. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas to all. And we'll see you. Bye-bye.